Hi, I'm Lisa Singer. I am the Senior Director Event Programming at MediaPost, and this is Brand Insider BTS, where I get to pull back the curtain on some of the most influential women marketers today. And with me is Sayali Kadam. She is the Director of Commercial Agility and Launch Excellence, got that right, at
Mhm.
Merck. Welcome, Sayali.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to have you. I know you just did an awesome Q&A with at one of our at our Farmer and Health Summit. So I definitely got rave reviews there. So really love having you there. But as I always say, now I get to find out the other side of Siley. So not the all professional girl. So happy to be.
Absolutely. I'm happy to share my journey and hope, our audience is able to get something out of it.
Oh, I'm sure they will. Well, I like to look at, at brands that, at the company that the women I interview are working with, and Merck, of course. And I see that a headline of Merck's reads, "Everything that motivates us starts with you to help you on your health journey." So now, what I want to ask you, taking that away from Merck and you, so what is it that motivates you personally, that takes you on your journey, not necessarily your health journey, although it could, but what really motivates you to take you on whatever that journey is? And it could be something as simple as, doing a triathlon. Well, not that simple, but something like that, or even just learning a new recipe, whatever it may be. But
Yeah.
how do you motivate yourself to actually do it and follow through?
Yeah, I actually want to share, my personal journey and motivation they're actually very, very closely aligned with what I do for a living. So one of the things that my parents really instilled in me, right, 100% attribution to my parents is like, stay true to yourself, do whatever you want to do, but be the best at what you do. So it's always very true to myself. I always knew I wanted to be in healthcare, have an impact on life sciences, and truly, like what really motivates me is the challenge of bringing like successful therapies to patients, and just like the fact that I get to work and launch therapies that can have impact on life, a life altering, a life changing for like millions of patients is truly what motivates me. So my father was an entrepreneur in the healthcare industry, and so growing up watching him really inspired me to do the best I can to have that impact, not just like for my family, which is like truly my core motivation, but also impact millions of families, right? And so I'm very lucky that my personal motivation and journey is very, very close to what I do. But that's kind of like core of what makes me is
Yeah,
like my
no, and
family
that's
values.
I think that's a wonderful way to be, and I love the way you include attribution, true marketer. But and when you were talking about your parents, but I want to take it smaller. I want to take because that's more again going towards your career. I just has there been anything that you've just wanted to do on a personal level, and just something simple, and maybe it's even just taking some time to meditate or whatever. But it's not always easy to do. Like for myself, I want to wake up earlier. I want to get up at
Yeah.
more like 6 and go work out. And that's so hard for me to do. And I'm trying to do it little steps at a time, but I'm trying to motivate myself. Now, I'm not being very successful on that side of it, but I have other things that I do that I am. So I'm just curious, is there something that maybe you're trying to motivate yourself to do, and maybe successfully or not successfully, but that's on
Yeah.
a smaller, more personal scale?
Yeah, and I'll say like on a much smaller scale, I'm signing up with some of my friends for a 30-mile walk. I think that is in New York City, and walks through all the boroughs of New York City. So that's a challenge that I've taken for myself, and it's coming up in May.
Very
So that's definitely something I'm motivating myself to take as many steps as I. It's a walk, not a run. I'm not a huge runner, so this is it's going to be an interesting one where I can see how much we can end up walking, but I'm doing it with my friends, so it's going to be a fun experience.
Yeah, definitely. And I think adding friends, adding a partner, especially when they talk about working out, they always say it sort of not only motivates you, but it makes you sort of accountable to someone. Like if you don't show up, you're not, people are waiting for you or someone is waiting for you. So I think that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's great. Well,
Yeah.
all right. I want to get back now to your career. And because you talked about initially that you wanted to do something with health, you wanted to help people. So that it seems like Merck, whether you knew it or not, when you were, first starting out, was certainly on your radar or would have been, is obviously part of your path. But where did that come from? And especially now you're not just in, health, but the marketing side of it. How did
Yeah.
that intertwine into your career? Talk about when you first started off and how that evolved.
Yeah, and it's been quite the journey. So I knew I wanted to be in health science. So I wanted to have a very, very strong foundation scientifically, technically. And that's kind of what like my parents encouraged me to do too. So I did my bachelor's in biotech, right? But one of the best things I'd done in my undergrad was that we had a co-op slash internship program. So before I even graduated, I had like a year of experience. I had worked at J&J and I had worked at Bristol Myers Squibb as a bench, like a junior bench scientist, right? So it really helped me understand, like, what does it take for a drug to go from bench to clinical trials to all the way to market. But I also understood that, I didn't want to work in on the bench, researcher, for example. And so I got to dig deeper in the biotech management space. That's where I got my master's degree in. And that's when I really learned the commercialization side of the business. And again, very similarly, I did an internship there, and I built some really good sponsors during my internship. And so I was able to really convert that into a full-time position. So I was one of the few people, and it was a very small program, highly selective, one of 12 students from my master's program, and I was one of the first ones was able to secure a job like months before I could graduate, right? And my first job was really, was actually a product launch. Very few people get to work on a product launch in the industry, and one of the biggest reasons for that is like 1 out of 10 products that enter clinical trial even get an FDA approval. So the fact that I was able to work on a launch right off the bat in my career was like an amazing experience. But I was able to do all parts of marketing. It was a mid-sized pharmaceutical company. So I was able to do peer-to-peer conventions, HCP, digital initiatives, consumer marketing. And then I transitioned to a larger company. So I was at Novartis and I worked on a black blockbuster product. It was for heart failure patients. And that was such a personal product for me because, I think everyone that I speak with know people who've had a cardiac event, unfortunately. I personally know people. And so, for me, that was a very fulfilling experience to have like that impact on on the cardiovascular industry, right? And I was able to, again, work not just on like one launch, but multiple launches throughout my career. And that kind of brought me to my current role. So Mark recruited me from my job at Novartis. And, they really valued the breadth of experience that I had, the diverse outside in perspective I could bring to my current role. So it's been quite the journey. It started from like the bench to really exploring the commercial side, but truly having, I always valued having a breadth of experience within the industry to really get to where I am today.
Yeah, and I'm curious, as for someone young just starting out, or interested in being part of pharma, being part of the healthcare, but on
Yeah.
the marketing side, is it important? Do you feel like that's stronger, that maybe your initial education, or if you've already graduated, maybe you then take some sort of additional, whether it's a master's or something, that you have that medical, that degree or knowledge in order, can you just walk in as a marketer
Yeah.
and learn, because as a marketer you learn the product.
Yeah.
It's about selling the product, basically, if you
Yeah.
if you bring it down to the simplest form. So do I need to be that knowledgeable on the medical side in order to market within your industry?
It's such a great question. So for me personally, it's been a leverage, right? If that's what makes me me, is I'm able to, work with that foundation, understand the medical scientific concepts very quickly and translate that into like messaging for our doctors and our patients, right? So for me, that's a huge plus. That's what makes me me. But is that a requirement? No, because I think, I think a marketer at its core is communication. Can you understand the science behind it and distill those messages? I mean, my number one advice really for any marketer is, younger in career, is really think about, and it's very easy to do this because, you kind of go heads down and you just start working on all tactics. And these are all the things I want to deliver, and these are the number of things I want to deliver. But really think about, well, what is that laddering up to? Why are you doing it? What is the impact you're driving for, whatever that is that you're trying to achieve? Because that is what's going to make a difference in a marketer's career, to be honest. Like, it is what is going to move the needle, and really laser focusing on the impact, and define your success metrics on whatever role you're in. That I think truly differentiates like a phenomenal marketer from like just a good enough marketer. And by the way, being good enough is just not, it doesn't cut it anymore.
Well,
And
especially
so
now it's much more competitive.
yeah, yeah, and I want to give an example. Just like, one of my previous roles that I worked on, uh, the leadership came and asked me, hey, and can you just look at all the existing marketing materials we have and see how we can do better, right? Seems like a simple assignment. And I did that. But also I looked at, well, there's a lot of messaging. How can we take all of that complex depth and breadth of messaging? How can we simplify it? And then conceptualize, and like I conceptualized an augmented reality app that was like the first time ever that was used promotionally with like 1,000 plus representatives. Um, it was like the very first in the entire therapeutic area as well. And so the way I define success is like, don't just, take the question you're being asked as like face value. Always try to push your boundaries. Always try to think, well, what do we need to accomplish overall for our patients and for our doctors? What's the best way to do it? And I never compare myself to what the industry breast is. I look at like what is everyone like, what's the progress and transformation that's happening across the board? Because guess what? Patients and doctors are all consumers at the end. They don't expect just because this is pharma that it's going to be different. They expect the integrated experience that we see, even when we do online shopping, for example. So I always compare myself to the best in class, not just the industry. And I think that would be something that I would tell anybody who's starting out. Um, don't just see what's being done in our industry. Take inspiration from companies like Amazon, Peloton. How are they, really serving their customers the right way?
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing, and I do. I think it's like take it to the next step, especially when you're just starting out. But at all levels, really. But look to see what your who you're working for really needs, and then do it for them before they even have to ask, or give them that opportunity, or
Exactly.
show them what you are really capable of doing. So, well, I also noticed in my little snooping that you have been doing a lot of you've been sharing your expertise, because obviously you have the two different sides. You have that health, that medical expertise, but also the marketing. And you recently spoke in a few industry events. And I'm curious about that. One, what makes you drawn to do that? Like, why is that something you want to be able to share with others? But also, two, how did you get to that level of expertise? Like, and I think just talking with you, I kind of realized the answer. But just for anyone who you're taking it to a different level, you're taking yourself. Everyone can do their career and stay focused, but then you obviously wanted to take it to this more expert level, share level, be a part of organizations, and be able to let people know what you're doing and how to do things.
Yeah.
How do you do that crossover?
Yeah, and yeah, and I haven't yeah, it's part of kind of like who I am as well. So as I mentioned, like pharmaceutical launches not that common. In fact, there's a McKinsey article that says only 1 out of 10 pharma marketers actually have prior launch experience, right? So that kind of drives me, right? It drives me to share you know, what is it that we can learn from each other as an industry? Because truly, with my personal motivation, I just want us as an industry to get really better at how we're bringing therapies out to our patients, right? And majority industry launches like fail to meet expectations. So there's tons of research, white papers out there, where there's industry publications that talk about, well, why is that the case? So really get a deeper understanding and learning from even other publications and experts who are putting literature out there on the top reasons for like launches not meeting its success, right? And so that kind of helps sort of build my knowledge base. Again, I don't compare just like the launches that I've done. And also working in a small smites company with smaller budgets, then a larger company, larger budgets, and now, overseeing like portfolio of launches just kind of gets me the exposure for different types of launches and different therapeutic areas. And so that's just kind of how it's evolved. I was fortunate that I was able to get into launches right away, and keep continuing to do multiple launches in different therapeutic areas and in different disease state areas, and continue having that impact for patients. But that's kind of how it's evolved, and I just want us as an industry, like I truly care, like even like future forward, I mentor, I mentor and coach folks within the company as well. And so that's just a personal passion of mine. I'll be going and speaking with some of the biotech students at RIT in a couple of weeks as well. So that's just truly my passion. I want people to know that being in science is not just about being on the bench. There's an entire plethora of career on the commercialization, marketing realm. It's not as simple as maybe some of the industries, but it's very rewarding, very fulfilling. And so, yeah, that's just how I came to where I am at.
Yeah, no, I mean, you obviously have a passion for what you do, and I'm sure that helps to be able to then share that, like everything you're learning and doing, you're excited about, and that obviously shows. So then to be able to speak about it at different organizations or different events, I'm sure that shines through. So that's great. I think that's an amazing way to not only take what you're doing, but then to pass it along to others, whether younger people in mentoring or
Absolutely.
anyone in the industry who needs to learn, and that's how we all learn. So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. I'm curious, is there anything that when people first meet you, they get wrong about you? First initial reaction.
It's a very interesting question. And I would say I'm a thinker. I'm a thinker. A little bit cerebral, and so this happened often early on in my career. So how that translated into is that I'm quieter at meetings, right? And then that kind of made people think, well, does she, why is that? We want her to participate. We want to hear from her. Kind of what's happening. But of course, I've grown into things like, yes, I can be a thinker and cerebral person all I want, but I need to put my opinions on the table. And sometimes it's not just like in one-off conversations, it needs to happen at the meeting. I need to speak my mind. And so I've grown and matured quite a bit since then. But that was I think it's like I have to remind myself even now sometimes, because it's just my personality. So how do you blend the inherent personality of yours with the needs of the team? Because ultimately, my opinions matter. I need to put them on the table, and it's valued. And if I don't do that, then the team's missing out on probably a different angle that no one else was thinking about. So I would say definitely that's one that I've faced.
See you as, but you had more going on there. You just weren't sharing it. So yeah, no,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
think that's so important to learn from. I mean, I think we all do certain things that one, we don't realize, or two, it's we sort of have our excuse of, well, this is what I'm really thinking. I want to make sure I'm saying the right thing. But ultimately, if it's
yes,
mental to what's happening, what's with to you and your career, or to just how people are perceiving you, it's that you acknowledge it. And I think have to be okay with hearing those kind of things, and then
absolutely.
being able to take it for what it is, something in hopefully in good a good meaning behind it as opposed to
Absolutely.
something else.
Yeah, and I mean, it's, having the right coaching and mentorship, throughout my career, and now I give back by
Mhm.
doing the same for others. And I think that's such an important thing that we need to do across the board because that level of coaching is invaluable for anyone's growth, including myself.
Yep, and it continues.
Yeah.
Has there been a challenge that you've faced that just maybe seemed like I can't get through this, and and did you get through it, or if not, what did you do? Like, how did you respond and move forward?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And as I reflect, as a challenge per se, I mean, there's definitely personal sides, but also professionally, I would say one of the launches that I was working on, we always put our best foot forward. We do all the market research we can. And it's a very interesting story, and it's actually very common. The way we define the patient population, the terminology was a very academic terminology. No one in the clinical or in practice actually use that terminology. So soon after launch, all our marketing materials have messaging that have this terminology that no one can relate to because it's so academic. And then the practitioners are like, well, what do you mean? Like who even uses this language anymore? And so I would say like that was challenging, right? Because you launch with the best hypothesis possible, and you put the best foot forward. But one of the biggest learnings I had was there's always going to be learnings as soon as you launch, and there's always going to be learnings. And I think the most important advice I even give it launchers now is like, hey, make sure you have a framework set in place where you're going to get feedback and you're going to evolve and adjust very, very quickly. And that's what we ended up doing with this is adjusting the messaging very, very quickly. It was very challenging because as you know, it's a very long process to get materials approved and updated and all of that. But doing it as quickly as possible because it was going to matter to our audience segment. So I would definitely say that was like a challenging time
But
and having to
I like to put it more for your personal side. You know that
okay.
in work, all of us face different challenges, and depending on where it is, and obviously the insight there is more just to keep going and sort of
Yeah.
adapt. But I'm curious for yourself personally, and it could be within your career, but you on the personal side, or maybe it's a challenge you faced on completely personal level, but something that you've had to kind of you dealt with, you got through it in some way, whether it was just getting past it or whether it was resolving it, or but just something where initially it just stopped you in your tracks.
So I'll talk about like a probably a defining moment of my life, and it might be a little bit older, but it's something that a lot of people don't. It's not very obvious from my profile, but I actually like first person in my family to have come like taken the first international flight out of India to actually come here to study. The first in my family, first international travel. We have no friends and family in the country, and I basically had 2 suitcases, and I landed in Rochester, New York in March.
Wow.
Probably, it's like it's something that not a lot of people know, but it's such a defining moment because it was a very bold move, I think, for the 18-year-old me to have done that. It really forced me to grow up quickly, but it was one of the toughest times of my life to ever leave. Like I never left home before. So it was one of the toughest times. But it was really, it pushed me to grow quickly. It pushed me to become independent quickly. It pushed me to adapt quickly to an entirely new country, an entirely new culture. I mean, I could write a book about all my experiences of my first month here.
Yeah.
But it was a defining moment and kind of makes me who I am today. And it also pushed me again. I talked about family being my central core. But also, I left my family to come here by myself. Like I wanted to make something of myself. Like that was also like such a driving force behind me moving so far. That kind of like really drove me as well.
Yeah, I'm curious
So
because when you said you wanted to make something of yourself, that's what I was curious. What prompted the move, and Did part of you, I'm just wondering, and then on a totally different scale. I mean, mine was
Yeah.
moving across the country, not moving to another country. But part of me was, okay, I want to make it. I want to, be successful, make something on my, with my career. And the other part of me is like, maybe I don't make it so that I can go back home. You know what I mean? Wherever when I like because
Yeah.
like I was torn depending on, did you ever feel like, did you ever have that kind of, you know, just like trying to balance out what you want and what you don't, and obviously the going forward one out, but I'm just
Yeah.
never faced that.
It was both of me, but it was also both of my parents. I think my mom at that time was very much like, because I was also like, my goodness, like, should I be doing this? Should I be doing this move? Like, I have nobody, I don't know anybody there. I don't know the climate, the weather, like, and we didn't even have WhatsApp and the technology that we have now to stay in touch with your family, right? So, like, literally, I had a landline phone, and like, I would have to coordinate times with my parents on when they were going to call me, and it wasn't easy. But it was really like, I think my mom really encouraged me. She's like, you need to make something of yourself. Like, I was like, okay. So then once I'm here, I don't think that was ever an option that I could just go back. Like, once I'm here, it's such a big process, right? It's a huge process to move here. You've invested in the university, you've invested quite a bit of time, resources to come here, and it's not an easy decision to just like say, yeah, I'm going to just stop this. And then I think I would say after being at the university for like a month or two, I found my people, I found my community. And then things were good, right? But like that initial part was very difficult. But once I got through that, I mean, I was unstoppable. Like the university gave me such good resources. I talked about the co-op program, like it really was like, I don't think I would be where I'm at today if I didn't have that kind of experience and exposure that young in my life.
Well, no, I mean, and it's hard. I can't imagine. I mean, like I said, I was scared enough or sad enough or all of the above just
Yeah.
going across country, and then to go into to another country. I can't imagine that
You
because
always need that one voice, right? Which was my mom. Like you always need that somebody who's going to like push you.
what's your obsession? What are you obsessed with today? And something just, you come back from whatever and you're like, oh, I'm going to sneak and have my ice cream, or I'm going to stream a bunch of shows, or just something fun and just
Yeah.
y-
I mean, I wouldn't call it an obsession, but one of the things that like I like to do personally is I absolutely love traveling. And me and my husband, we try to go to as many countries as possible every year. We've been doing 3 to 4 countries, except the COVID years, of course. We were not able to travel as much, but I wouldn't even call it obsession, right? It's like something that I absolutely love doing. I prioritize it in my life. It brings me energy to visit other countries, learn about their culture, big foodie, so eating foods from other countries, right? Really immerse myself in their culture. That's what I truly enjoy about it's a big part of like who I am is like big travel and foodie. So
yeah, no, and I actually meant to say guilty pleasure, not obsession. I think that's I don't think I'm obsessed with my ice cream, but or actually, ice cream isn't even one of my guilty
Yeah.
pleasures. But you know what I was meaning, guilty pleasure. But I think that's even a better answer. It tells us more about what you enjoy, and I love that. So, well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing with me.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Good. I'm glad, and thank you for watching. And please, if you know anyone, another extraordinary woman brand marketer that you'd like to hear more about, please let me know. I will do my best to get her. And thanks again, Sayali.
Thank you.